love lives here.
All right, so now I would love to present our speaker for today, Mr. Marcus Gilliland. All right, so Marcus, aka $1 Million Haircut Gilliland, is originally from Colorado, and he's a ministerial intern. He's fulfilled a long-term dream of moving to California in 2012. Shortly thereafter, he was introduced to science of mind philosophy, and fell in love with Centers for Spiritual Living. After a transformative moment during a Sunday morning gathering just like this, Marcus made the decision to return to school and pursue becoming a practitioner. In 2020, he graduated summa cum laude from Grand Canyon University with a degree in psychology. Impressive. And completed his practitioner studies. He is currently set to complete his master's in consciousness studies and certification in ministerial education from the Holmes Institute by the end of 2024. Time away from studies is spent with his fiancee Brett and their dog Toby. Marcus is also a musician, an orchid enthusiast, and an amateur gardener. Let's all give a warm welcome to Marcus.
All right, so here we are. Is it true? We are almost through with the 15 commitments of conscious leadership. This is week 10, so only 5 more to go. How you holding up? Things good? Yeah? All right, good. So this will be my final talk in this summer series, and I just want to say it has been so wonderful to come up to here to Riverside. You've been so welcoming, and it really has been a pleasure. Really good experience for me. And I know that wonderful information has been shared about this topic and this book. And it's been really fun for me to go through the book again. It was part of one of my classes, and when Reverend Jeff said that that was going to be the summer series, I was like, I'm in. Yeah, if you want me to come up, I'm for it. So today, commitment 10, we're exploring the opposite. So what does that bring up for you when we talk about exploring the opposite, when we talk about thinking about the other side of things? What comes to mind for you? And how has that opportunity show up in your life? And how many examples can you think of right now when you've been given the opportunity to think of the other side, the other way of thinking about it? And is exploring the opposite something you are comfortable with? Or is seeing another point of view something that is uncomfortable for you? Is it something that takes a little bit of time that you need to work through and see if you can get to? When I began exploring this topic, 3 things came to mind. There's a mental process of flipping the switch, just doing that simple little flip of the switch. Made me think of when I was a kid, we would go to a friend's basement and we'd do disco in the basement. We'd flip the switch back and forth, and Mom and Dad would get mad because we'd blow out a light bulb. Made me think of my parents' relationship, and also made me think of a personal experience that I had with a former minister who shall remain nameless. But first, let's talk about seeing the other side, flipping the switch. Byron Katie, from the 1980s, I think, came up with The Work, a work called The Work. And in The Work, she says, I discovered that when I believed my thoughts, I suffered. But when I didn't believe them, I didn't suffer. And that this is true for every human being. Freedom is as simple as that. I found that suffering is optional. I found a joy within me that has never disappeared, not for a single moment. That joy is in everyone, always. Suffering is optional. What a powerful statement. I heard that for the first time, I think, in the early 90s when I was in Denver, and I was a member at 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. I was good friends with the social worker that was there, and she said that during one of our conversations, and it hit me over the head like a 2x4. Suffering is optional. And joy is a choice. I always want to put that at the end as well. Suffering is optional, and joy actually is a choice. And this talk of suffering harkens to the 4 noble truths of Buddhism. The truth that, well, I won't go into it, but the truth of the cause of suffering, or the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth on the path that leads, let me do this better. Life is suffering. Suffering is caused by attachment. There's a way out of suffering, and then there's the truth that leads us on the way out of the suffering. They follow the eightfold path. So getting out of suffering, getting out of that attachment to our thoughts. And today, when I'm talking about thoughts, I'm talking about those thoughts that don't serve us, those thoughts that are limiting, those thoughts that are not true in any way, in an authentic way. So Byron Katie goes through a process where she invites us to ask ourselves some questions, to take an observational look at these thoughts that don't serve us. First, we can ask ourselves, now, is that thought true? Now, can I absolutely know that it's true? Absolutely know that that thought is true? Who would I be without that thought? And how do I react? What happens when I actually observe my belief of that thought? And when we've explored these questions, then we can experience a way to turn around. I think what Ernest Holmes says, to reorient ourselves within the law. So that what we are experiencing is the goodness. What we're experiencing is that which is the truth of our being, when we're connected to that source of all things. I'll talk more about that turnaround later here in the talk. But first, that exercise, asking those questions. So again, what I'm talking about are those not enoughness things. I will never get out of debt. I will never experience the life that I want to. I'll never find that partner. I'll never have that vacation that I've always dreamed of. I'll never experience security in my life. I can't have, it won't be. All of those kinds of things that stir us up sometimes in the middle of the night or throughout the day with that dialogue that runs through our head. So I would invite you now to kind of go through that exercise with me. So take a thought, one of those thoughts that may be coming up for you as I'm thinking about this, and if 20 or 30 thoughts are showing up, ask them to just form a single line, and we'll just take time with the one that shows up at the front. And ask yourself, is this true? Is that thought true? Can I absolutely know that this is true? I'll never get out of debt. I'll never find love. I'll never, whatever that is. Can I absolutely know that that is true? And observe what happens when you take a moment to really invest in believing that thought. What happens inside of you? What do you feel? Where does it show up? Now, if you haven't already done so, pause for a moment and close your eyes. And take a deep breath, a deep cleansing breath. And silently ask yourself, what would happen if I released all attachment to this thought? Who would I be if I didn't have to hold on to this way of thinking? There's no right or wrong answer. Just observe. And take a deep breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So what does it feel like to look at that type of thinking and then to explore the opposite? What would I be? Who would I be? What would my life experience be like if I let that thought go? If I went to the extreme opposite end, I am out of debt. I am in relationship. I am experiencing life right here, right now. This is something we can do anytime we have one of those thoughts that challenge us, that come up and go, oh, wait a minute, is that true? Can I know that's absolutely true? What am I feeling that's supporting that thought? And what would my life be if I let it go? If I let it go, if I stopped holding on, grasping desperately to it. I also said that this topic made me think of my parents' relationship. Exploring the opposite reminded me of a story that they told about the early days of their courting and when they had decided to get married. My parents have been married 57 years, and they chuckle when I say that they are an example for the rest of us. 54 here we have, and 28, so maybe you'll relate to some of the things that I say here. But in my 49 years of life, I have witnessed ups and downs in their relationship. At times, they've been like Maria and Captain Von Trapp from The Sound of Music. And at other times, they've been like George Costanza's parents from Seinfeld. But always together, always in partnership. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to just come around the corner as people that you love are talking to each other. You know, not eavesdropping, but you just happen to hear the tail end of a conversation. And those people, when they're in that type of commitment, when they're in that type of relationship, they have a communication. And it was always wonderful for me to just hear the way that they talk to each other. Now, when over 57 years ago, they came to my grandmother Dorothy, my dad's mom, may her light forever shine, and they told her they were planning to get married, she shared just a little nugget of wisdom. She said, "There is no piece of bread sliced so thin that it doesn't have two sides. It's impossible to slice it so thin that it still doesn't have two sides." Always being conscious that whatever is going on in our minds, whatever our beliefs are, whatever we are thinking is so right, you have to remember there might be another side to this, especially when we're in relationship. In relationship, in friendships, relationship in community, and relationships with ourself. Our self with a little s and our self with a big S, There's always a different way to look at it. And it's one of those phrases that's so simple. There is no piece of bread sliced so thin it doesn't always have two sides. So applicable in my life. When I'm challenged by politics, when I'm challenged by things in my relationship, when I'm challenged by my own beliefs of what I'm able to accomplish and where I'm going in my trajectory, and why am I not there yet? What's holding me back? What am I believing that's putting tar on my feet so that I can't move as quickly as I want to? And I have no idea how that wisdom played out in their lives, truly. I haven't never really sat down and had a conversation, and how have you applied that in your life, Mom and Dad? But I have seen the evidence of that type of behavior in their life. And when I was young and when I was growing up and I was having challenges with friends or family members, they would nudge me. Well, what's their point of view? Write it down in a letter. Talk to them about it. See what's going on. See if you can explore another way to look at it. For there's always more to explore when we think about having the right answer. It harkens back to the first talk that I gave in this series about learning through curiosity. When we think we have it so right, I'm not going to budge on this because I know it's right. Well, wait a minute. What would it be like if I explored a different way? And finally, the turnaround that I talked about earlier from Byron Katie. I mentioned at the beginning of this talk that this exploration of exploring the opposite made me think of a former minister. And I'll say there really is no such thing as a former minister. Whether we stay under their tutelage or whether we stay in the community where they're the leader, always Spirit has moved through them in a way that has spoken to us at that time that was perfect for us at that moment. So whether we stay or whether we go, the lessons that we have learned are quite important for us, I believe, on our spiritual journey. And I had an experience, a disturbing experience, one that bordered on the traumatic for me. Not to be dramatic, but that's what it was like for me at the time. And it was a part of this community where this minister is still the leader. And I was so wounded by this experience, I was so wounded by what happened, that I began to question this philosophy. I began to question whether I was going to stay on the practitioner track, and if this is what's going to happen when I'm a part of this type of group, then I don't want any part of it. I don't think I can continue. What have I done? What have I done that I've put myself in this type of situation? And I'm really glad that as a part of that practitioner track, I was required to have a relationship with a practitioner who is actually experienced in guiding people through those types of challenges. And this really speaks to me about the special relationship that we can have with practitioners when we really take the time to sit down and talk about those things that are challenging. Not knowing that they have the answer, but as my friend Lee Armentrout says, you may have lost your keys, and I don't know where they are, but I'm here to hold your hand as we walk around your house to find them. You know? And while the practitioner did not specifically use the turnaround method when we were going through this challenge, as they guided me around my own house so that I could find the key to unlock the door, the result was the same. The end statement was the same. The end result was spiritual freedom and opening of my mind. And I'll preface by saying that this minister didn't do anything unethical. I still talk to this minister, and I can still consider them a friend. But essentially, the conversation that I had with the practitioner followed the turnaround process. The first thing is we make a statement, the statement that we're believing. The minister was not there for me. Now we turn that around and express the opposite. The minister was there for me. And turn it around again. I didn't have the skill set at the time to express what I needed in that moment directly and not unemotionally, but directly. This is what I'm feeling. This is what happened, and I need to talk about it. I need to explore it. And I turn it around again. I wasn't there for me. Right? Now, this is not a method for us to stay in abusive relationships. This is not a method to justify staying in unhealthy communities. This is not a method for us to remain in harm. It's a way to explore, how can I see what's happening in a different way? How can I look on the other side of it and see what the possibility is for Spirit to move through me so that I open up in a way where I am comfortable expressing myself as me in this moment? No matter if it's a minister, a mom, a dad, a partner, somebody at the grocery store. How can I explore a way where I can be authentic as myself in this life? We are not subject to the world of conditions. We are not subject to politics, to horoscopes, to planetary alignments, to lotto tickets, to anything. We are not subject to conditions. We are expressions of that one life, that one love that overarches everything. And as we come into closer relationship with that, the more that blossoms in our life. So when we're having those experiences that do not support us, when we are having that dialogue that runs through our head consistently, telling us that we are not, we can't, we won't, we will never, we can explore the other way, which is the way of freedom, the way of life, which is limited by nothing and never will be. So is it true when we come up in these places in our lives where we're unstable and we want to come back to balance? We can ask, is that true? Is that true? We are free to recognize that there are always two sides to every situation. Try and find a slice of bread that doesn't still have two sides, right? And we can turn it around to employ our consciousness, to remove ourselves from victimhood and experience life in a way that is free and fulfilling. I can't get away from a talk without talking about Dr. Holmes, Mr. Ernest Holmes, where he says, we are surrounded by a subjective intelligence which receives the impress of our thought and acts upon it. This natural law in the mental world is neither good nor bad. It can only be said of it that it is, and that we may consciously use it. The law is a law of reflection, for life is a mirror reflecting to us as conditions the images of our thinking. Whatever one thinks tends to take form and become a part of their experience. That's from the Science of Mind. And as the authors of our text remind us, this is not about valuing one thought over another, but staying truly open to the exploration. So let's join each other in consciousness here, knowing that there is one power, one life, one love, one eternal existence that is always and forever surrounding all things. Everything that is exists within this one power, this one presence. There's nothing above it, there is nothing below it, or to either side of it, for everything exists within this one life. So that means that I am a part of this life. I am an expression of this one thought. I'm one with this power and this presence. And if this is true for me, then it is absolutely true for everyone here in this room, everyone online. All of creation is infused with this one power and this one life. As far as I can go outward to the galaxies, to the edge of the universe, as far as humanity has discovered, I know that God is there, and the spaces between the atoms of my being is saturated with this one life and this one law. I can never be removed from it, and I know that we are never separated from it in any way, shape, or form. And so I know that we are safe as we explore looking at the other side. I know that God holds our hand as we look at ways to see the other side, the brighter side, the more supportive side. And as we do that, as we accept that there is goodness, as we accept that there is life that is moving through us, God says yes. God definitely says yes. Oh, yes, my child, do more. I am here. Experience more, love more. For as much as you believe you can have, that I shall give you, and more. So I'm so grateful for this. I'm grateful that this is a truth, that this is not something that is manufactured, that this is not something that is forced to be. This is something that simply moves through us. And as much as we entertain and as much as we want to be in relationship with it, it will do that for us and be with us forever and ever, never alone. So in that gratitude, I do just simply release this into that infinite law of mind that understands everything about me, everything that is in my mind, everything that is in my heart and my thoughts, every sound that I make, every moan and groan, every laughter, every sound of joy. It says, yes, this is my child, my beloved. I am so pleased. I am so pleased. So I do say thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I release this. I let it go. I let it be. I set it down. And so it is. Amen.